I was reading Good Poems for Hard Times, a book of poems by Garrison Keillor, when I came across Disappointment by Tony Hoagland. I was immediately struck by how it feels to read out loud, and although there's no real rhyme scheme, it feels more like poetry than prose, despite its lack of meter, stanza, or rhyme. Tony Hoagland writes a lot like this, in this sort of dancing on the line of prose and poetry. Most of his poems tell a story and have a focus on American life and the quintessential human experience. Hoagland was born in 1953 in an army base in North Carolina and ended up moving around the South for most of his young life due to his father's military career. This, combined with the college education he received after dropping out of multiple other graduate programs and traveling around the Northwest for a while, gave him a comprehensive view of the country that he bases most of his writing off of. Without further ado, let's get into my favorite poem, Tony Hoagland's Disappointment. I was feeling pretty religious, standing on the bridge in my winter coat, looking down at the gray water. The sharp little waves dusted with snow, fish in their tin armor. That's what I like about disappointment, the way it slows you down, when the querulous, insistent chatter of desire goes dead, calm. The minor roadside flowers pronounce their quiet colors, and the red dirt of the hillside glows. She played the flute, he played the fiddle, and the moon came up over the barn. Then he didn't get the job, or her father died, before she told him that one most important thing and everything got still. It was February or October. It was July. I remember. You don't have to pursue anything ever again. It's over. You're free. You're unemployed. You just have to stand there, looking out on the water, in your trench coat of solitude, with your scarf of resignation lifting in the wind. Why do I like this poem? Well, I like it because it's multiple valences, but in a way that makes it very accessible to anyone. Though I have my own personal opinion, people can't seem to agree as to whether the underlying message of the poem is about sadness or relief. I find this so fascinating, the way that this poem is such a duality, which opens it up to an even larger audience with different experiences. It might not be the simplest poem in the world, but it was written for everyone. Speaking of this duality, the poem doesn't just have two messages. The poem has two stories. One, that this is a person right before they give up, the warmth before freezing to death, say, and that they are at this peace of tranquility, where everything has gone so wrong, so often, and so much, and so the speaker finds that the bridge, or death, is the only option. Now, I'm not just making this up. The poem is pretty clearly making an allusion to Hart Crane's famous poem, To Brooklyn Bridge, which was published in 1930. In Crane's poem, the speaker recounts the tale of watching a figure leap from the aforementioned Brooklyn Bridge. The second story is a little more hopeful. This story is about radically accepting the fact that life involves failure and disappointment and a lot of hard times, and sometimes all you can do during those hard times is be like, yeah, I'm having a hard day and I'm disappointed and maybe I failed, and that's okay. The sort of serenity of pain. Taking a minute or two to just accept and stand here is what will make it all alright. I find the difference between these two stories, these two radically different interpretations of this piece of writing, really hinge on how you visualize the bridge. When I first read it, I imagined a bridge over a small river, maybe in a forest, but after noticing the connection to Hart Crane's poem, began seeing it as more of an industrial part of a cityscape. Switching tangents here, something I'm really interested in is the idea of who the speaker is. I find this so fascinating. The beginning of the poem starts out in first person. I was feeling, that's what I like. But by the end is transformed into second person. You're free. You just have to stand there. This brings the reader into the poem. It keeps them from just being a passive observer of the content, but intertwines them with the speaker. It's unclear whether the speaker is one of the two people mentioned in the middle of the poem, the flute-playing girl or the fiddle-playing boy. If so, that would be an interesting tangent to third person, but if not, it begs an interesting question about one of the last lines, in your trench coat of solitude. These were actual people in the speaker's life? Then where did they go? However, none of these things are my favorite thing about the poem. My absolute favorite thing, the thing that made me choose this poem for this project, is the way that Tony Hoagland makes the reader say the words, "You're unemployed." Everything in the poem has led up to this moment. This is the very climax of the poem, and he imbues this word with all this power in such a positive way. Hoagland forces the reader to read the word unemployed in an almost religiously reverent way, which I find the funniest juxtaposition of my life. I find it so funny because losing your job and becoming unemployed is something so intertwined with bad feelings and disappointment that saying the word unemployed with such a spiritual passion, conveying that it is something so breathtaking and ultimately good, is just hilarious. Leaving you with that, let's read Tony Hoagland's Disappointment one more time. I was feeling pretty religious, standing on the bridge in my winter coat, looking down at the gray water. Sharp little waves dusted with snow, fish in their tin armor. That's what I like about disappointment, the way it slows you down, when the querulous, insistent chatter of desire goes dead, calm. The minor roadside flowers pronounce their quiet colors, and the red dirt of the hillside glows. She played the flute, he played the fiddle, and the moon came up over the barn. Then he didn't get the job, or her father died, before she told him that one most important thing and everything got still. It was February or October. It was July. I remember, you don't have to pursue anything ever again. It's over. You're free. You're unemployed. You just have to stand there, looking out on the water, in your trench coat of solitude, with your scarf of resignation lifting in the wind.